going on? Welcome to another episode of the Impel Forward Podcast. I'm your host, Leon.
And I'm Renee.
Go ahead.
You
we hit,
oh.
we hit woo
Woo woo.
There it is. Yo, today we have with us Kiara. Key. You call it just Key. Just Key.
Just Key.
Yeah. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. What's going on? We was talking a little bit backstage, and you was telling us about where you from. So go ahead and let the people know who you are and where you from and all that good stuff.
Okay. So yes, my name is Kiara, but obviously I go by Key. Hence where I got the name of my business, Key's Kreations, which I own a bakery. I'm home based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am a graduate of East Carolina University.
Okay.
Go Pirates. And what else do you want to know about me? There's so many layers.
She's a young and thriving empire building young lady.
Yes. Now, Renee, tell us how you know Key.
I know Key because we used to work together. We used to work together for a few years. I didn't know her directly, but I knew her indirectly from her and her cakes. But she was known as the pretty tall girl with all of this curly hair that was ombre and with different shades of like reds and auburn colors and blonde. And she would walk around with these cakes in a jar. And I would see them on people's desks and be like, what is that? And they would say, oh, it's a cake in a jar. I got it from Key. And I'm like, well, who is Key? They're like the tall girl with the pretty hair. And I would be like, wow. And I remember her because I remember she had walked past me one time and she had some in her hand. And I was like, hey, how can I get one of those? And she was like, oh, no, these are gone. And I said, dang, I'm going to catch her next time. And I didn't get a chance to really catch her because, I traveled a lot for work. And so did my team. So just in passing. And plus, she's popular, right? Okay. People loved her cakes in a jar. So, sis would be gone, right? As soon as she brings them in the building, orders fulfilled. So I didn't ever get a chance. But I knew in some capacity, some way, I would get a chance to support her down the line. Sometimes you can see the vision before other people see it. So I knew that I would get a chance to support her in some other way, shape, or form. So that's what I'm going to tell you.
So how long have you been making cakes?
So this is a technical question for me.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, I've been baking for a long time, like for years and years. I think probably since I was maybe in like college. My dad owns a catering company and he used to cook. Like my dad is one of the best cooks I've ever met in my life, of course. So I would always ask him, like I would just, watch him cook and I just started asking him like, how do you make this? Or how do you make that? And I fell in love with baking. So as far as like what Renee's talking about, like the cake jars, and I've always just been like super creative. So I used to make cake pops to take into IBM. I did the cake jars. I think I might have did like chocolate covered Rice Krispies or Oreos for time and again. But the baking, I've been baking for years. Like I said, I probably really fell more in love with baking like around my college years. But I actually started my business and actually started making the decorative cakes in 2020. So it was July 2nd, 2020. I made my very first decorative cake, and that it's kind of what, led the way for my business, Key's Kreations.
So what made you, or who inspired you to kind of make that push? Because that's a jump, right? For you to go out, especially dealing with desserts and cake and people, and, people could be harsh a lot of times. And, when it comes to like sweets and all of those different things. So what made you kind of make that push to say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to step out and I'm going to start making cakes?
So to be totally honest, like Renee said, I met her at IBM. IBM is notorious for layoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So the time came where I got that letter from IBM and they're like, hey, you got 2 weeks. You're out of here. And for, I was totally blindsided. I think I was like 20. I think this was like 2017. So I think I was like 27. I was not being responsible with my money. I was living with my grandmother. And it's just like my income was just totally gone. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I know that my income is going to be gone in 14 days. And then like, yeah, you get a severance pay, but that took like a month for them to send it to me. And like I said, I was terrible managing my money, right? So I'm like broke. Yeah. I went from like, living, taking all these trips and doing this, that, and the third. And it's like, okay, what have you been doing with your money since you've been here? But I think that really opened my eyes to like working with corporate companies with like really understanding that like you are another number, like they will replace you in a heartbeat. So, and then it also opened my eyes to like, as far as like managing money, it made me realize that I wasn't managing my money very well. So from that point, I sat down and I was thinking, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And I'm just like, there has to be another way. So at that point, I feel like is when I decided, okay, like I will work a corporate job, but I also I want to have money on the side that I'm making on my own. So I'm like, what can I do to make money? Like, what's something that I can work for myself? I can pick what hours I want to work. And I'm just like, I've been selling the cake jars. I've been selling cake pops. So I'm like, okay, why not take this more seriously and actually really try to turn this into a business instead of like, okay, I'm baking treats and I'm taking them to work every Friday. And when I sell out, I sell out. So that's kind of what pushed me. Like, I wanted to have my own business where, yes, I can be working for a corporate company, but if that company ever tells me like, hey, we're laying people off, or if they just want to fire you, because we are in North Carolina, which is at Will State. Yes. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that, or, they don't move about how they should. But, if at any moment a company's like, we no longer need you, okay, I still have my own income on the side. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started taking it more serious. And I actually met my wonderful mentor, and that's another story in itself.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get into that. Go ahead.
No. We'll talk about it.
So did you immediately, when you got that letter, you said you had 2 weeks. Did you think about the cakes and start making them within those 2 weeks? Or did you leave and get another job and then start making the cakes?
The first thing I did was panicked.
Of course.
I panicked. Like, I was so angry. Like, I still remember exactly how everything happened this day, however many years later. Like, it's been 8 years later, but I still remember. Like I said, I was totally blindsided. That's the number one. So I was shocked. And when my manager took me in the office and told me, like, okay, this is your last day, I'm just like, what? So immediately I'm like, I'm not finishing the rest of the day. I'm going home. And I'm like, what are you going to do? Fire me?
Yeah.
Oh, the hood came out, huh?
I think that's a true feeling and emotion that you go through when you're being told like you're going to be laid off, or, within 2 weeks. It's like, I don't want to work right now. I need to digest what you just told me and figure it out, because you're no good at work, because it's like, I'm going to be gone in 2 weeks. You're not going to get as much out of me as you did yesterday when I didn't know this information,
Right. So immediately, like, I'm like, okay, I need to go home. So I go home. I'm living with my grandmother at the time. So I tell my grandmother, like, I just got laid off. And she's like, so my grandmother's super old school. She worked at Duke for like 40 years before. It's like, she literally just retired like 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. But she worked at Duke since she was 19 years old. Right. So like, my grandmother's very much like by the book. Everything is by the book with her. So she's like, what are you going to do? You need a job. Da, 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 da. And my grandmother panics too. So, she wasn't the best person to talk to. Mm-hmm. But I immediately went into panic mode. And while I was finishing out my 2 weeks, so to be totally honest, I made a deal with my manager, and I told him that I would give him a solid week, and that last week I wasn't coming to work. Yeah. And it just, You know, I was like, I'll give you this solid next week, and that second week I'm not working.
Yeah.
And then at the time, you know, I knew I was going to get paid anyway. So so I worked that first week, and I was at work, and I did, you know, I did enough to get by. But while I was at work, I just started applying for jobs. I updated my resume. That was another thing with like, I feel like when people get on the jobs, we get comfortable and we don't update our resumes. So I had to go in and update my resume. And then, you know, like when you're applying for different jobs, you have to like tink your resume a little bit for this job, or, you know, change around your objectives for that job. So I was doing a lot of that while I was at work. And then I think that second week, like I went to the beach because I was like, I just need to clear my mind. Mm-hmm. And I went to the beach, and I think that second week was kind of like, okay, I'm still in panic mode, but I'm like, what am I going to do? Yes, I'm applying for jobs, but how else can I make money? And I think that's when it kind of started to sink in. Like, you literally have something in the palm of your hands that can make money. I think the hardest thing for me was at the time, I was selling the treats at IBM, right? So people at IBM knew, like, oh, you know, that's the cake lady, or that's Key with the hair that sells cake. So, but it's like, okay, well, you're no longer at IBM Monday through Friday. So it's like, okay, now where are you going to sell cakes? So, and I'm not a person who, like, I'm not good at soliciting, but when I tell you, I was like, my dad knows a lot of people in Durham. So like, he would call his friends that own barbershops, his friends that own hair salons. And I'm like, okay, I would go up to IBM. Actually, I still went to IBM every single Friday, and they still sold me out every single Friday. Like, they were very, very supportive. But you know, that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, I had a platform at IBM, but how am I going to take this to the next level? And I knew that the soliciting, like going into the barbershops, going into the hair salons, like I quickly learned, like, okay, this, like, I'm not a seller, like I don't solicit things. So I'm going to have to figure out another way. So again, this is, you know, kind of circling back when I'm like, okay, let me actually take this serious. Let me give this a name. Let me start an Instagram or a Facebook page. So, you know, let me start getting traction so that people will come to me, opposed to me. You know, I can make stuff for the day if I sell. I hope I sell out, but some days I would make stuff and I might not sell but 4 or 5 cake jars that day.
Right. And there, look, she got the Instagram, you got the Facebook, the website.
I didn't have a website. So for I don't think there's anything wrong with having a website for bakers, but for, like, I will say, for like any up and coming baker, it's not a necessity when you first start. The reason that I say that, now, I would never tell someone, like, don't get a website. If you have the means to do so, do it. Mm-hmm. But for what I was doing, what I do is more so, it's like, it's custom cakes, right? So you're not going to be able to walk into a Harris Teeter or a Wegmans and get a Keys Creations cake. Right. You won't be able to walk to the next baker and get a Keys Creations cake, because I have a certain way that I decorate my cakes. All my cakes are custom. So yes, I can have a website, but when it comes to ordering, you still would have to complete an order form, you know, kind of tell me what you want. So really, that website, to me, I feel like a website for a custom baker such as myself is more so like a picture gallery. Like, you can go on my website and see the work that I've done, but if you want to order, you have to fill out this form or that form. So I do have a link tree, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. My link tree has like my Instagram, my Facebook link, and then I have order forms. Like, I have wedding cake request forms and custom cake request forms. So, but the website I didn't start. I didn't have a website at the very beginning.
And nothing's wrong with that. You know, absolutely. Like you said, you know, your cakes are custom. So a lot of times, you know, it's based on the customer's needs and they might get inspiration or pull inspiration from the cakes that you've already made and then create their own. So that's always amazing. How did you start, I guess, because Cakes in a Jar, Cake Pops, all of those things, to Cakes and Design? Did you take like a class, YouTube University? How did we get there to like full blown, like decorative custom cakes? How did that happen?
So YouTube University is amazing, but so throughout this struggle of like, I was looking for a job, just going back to that, it took me 6 months to find another full-time job. So I had a friend who, she would literally call me every single day, and she's like, "Hey friend, I'm just checking in on you. Like, I'm checking in on your mental. Like, are you okay?" She's like, "What type of jobs are you looking for? Like, how can I help you? I'm not in your industry, but maybe I may know someone who's in your industry." And she, you know, and she also knew that I started taking my Keys Kreations seriously. So I had the Instagram page and I had the Facebook page. So she sent me this page of someone, like a mentor. Her name was Brienne, but we call her Bree. And she had a cake business that she retired. She wasn't making cakes anymore, but she was offering a mentoring program, a mentorship for up and coming bakers such as myself. So I reached out to her via Instagram, and I'm like, "Hey, you know, I really would like your mentorship. Could I get in your mentor program?" So we began with her mentor program, and she came in our very first session. You know, she kind of just gets like your base information of like, you know, like, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to basically achieve with mentoring with me? So after about our first or second mentor session, she just looked at me one day and she's like, "I'm just really confused as to why you called me." And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
You knew she was doing already.
Right. She's like, "Your stuff looks really good." So at the time, like we already said, I was making cake jars. I was doing chocolate covered strawberries. I would make the cake, I think cake pops, like, and like maybe chocolate covered Oreos and chocolate covered Rice Krispies. So she's like, I'm just really confused as to why you called me, because everything looks really good. Like, she's like, "You don't need me for, like, you know what you're doing as far as decor." She was like, "To be totally honest, when it comes to your drizzle on the strawberry," she was like, "they probably look better than mine did when I retired, like when I stopped making cakes." So I'm just like, wow, like, thank you, but no, I still need your help. And she's like, "Well, what do you need my help with?" And I'm like, "A social media presence." I'm like, "You have like 10,000 followers and I have like 200. So, you know, I'm like, if I can generate the social media following, then I feel like my business can become more successful. Like, I need customers, right? There's no successful business without customers." So then she said, "Have you ever considered making cakes?" And I was like, "No, absolutely not." So she's like, "Why?" And I said, "Well, you know," I was like, "You're my mentor and I've seen your work. It looks amazing." And I said, "I know another young lady in Durham who made amazing cakes, and she just stopped making cakes out of nowhere." And we have mutual friends. So through a mutual friend, I was told that she stopped making cakes because she no longer had a life. Like, everything was like cake, 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 cake. And then she was having a baby, and she's just like, "I can't dedicate this time to this business anymore." So I told my mentor, I'm like, "I don't want to make cakes because I have a life. I don't want my life to just be like the cake lady." Like,
wait. See, you learned a lesson right there. You went through you wanted a mentor, and then she said you didn't need her, and then you said you do need her, and she gave you an idea, and you was like, "Nah," but you got something out of that idea.
I think she was, were you balancing the need to still want to be me, still be fun, key, travel, you know, do all the things, hangs with my friends, look for a full-time job, security, and then like cake. I think your foot was in, but not all the way.
Nope, it was not. It was not all the way in. So she's like, "What if," she's like, "Okay." So she was like, "What if you just tried?" She was like, "Have you ever tried to make a cake before?" So I was like, "I mean, I attempted to make a cake for somebody before, and it looked terrible." Like that was actually my true first cake, actually. But I was like, I tried to make a cake for somebody, and I was like, she literally, like, she knew that I hadn't made cakes before. She was open to me just trying to make something. So I'm like, "Okay, I'll do this." The cake looked terrible. It wasn't smooth. Like, I just couldn't figure out. I'm like, "How do they make these cakes look so pretty?" So she's like, "Okay, what if we make one cake? Like, if we make one cake, if you like it," she said, "I'll continue to mentor you to make, as far as making cakes and growing your business that way." She was like, "If you don't like it, then I'll mentor you as far as the treats and Instagram." And she's like, "And I'll never mention making cakes to you ever again. But she was like, I really think you should try it. I think you would be really good at it. So I was like, I still wasn't convinced. I'm like, like, I was like, let me sleep on it. Okay, like I'll sleep on it. So she's like, I'll bring all the products that you would need, like everything that you would need to make a cake. She was like, I'll bring it over at our next mentor session. She was like, if you're willing to do it. So I'm like, okay, I'm willing to try to make this stupid cakes. Like I was so
you wasn't really in it. You wasn't sold yet.
I was opposed to making cakes. I'm like, I just want to make strawberries and cake pops. So we have our session. I make my first cake, which was July 2nd, 2019, and here we are.
Wow. Like, how did you did she help you like with the fondant and all of that? Like, how did you get so good at it?
So Bree is amazing. So the first, I feel like one of the best things that she taught me is like just the foundations of having a business, like keeping things organized, knowing how much money that you're spending on like products, how much money literally breaking something down to like where my chocolate cake recipe might be $5.86. you know, so she gave me that foundation. Then she literally, we went from baking, like she's like, I'm not here to change your recipes, like I'm just here to guide you. So, you know, she would look at my, like I would bake and she would ask like, how are my recipes? When I had a cake bake, maybe she helped me tweak some recipes because it's different baking in a sheet cake pan and making cake jars and then baking in 3-inch pans that you need these cakes to be sturdy and stand up so that you can actually like, you know, kind of more so like kind of build on these cakes. But she taught me from baking, like the fundamentals of baking, tips for baking, down to the decorating. Like the first cake that we made was a rosette cake. I don't know if you know off bat what a rosette cake is. Well, you probably do, Renee.
Yeah. Is it like with the roses?
It looks like it has roses around it. Yeah, that's the very first cake that we made. And that was like really popular back then too. Like everybody wanted rosette or drip. Rosette or drip cakes were the thing. So she taught me how to make a rosette cake. She taught me how to structure a cake. And then from there, she kind of like gave me the reins, like, what do you want to make next? And I'm like, oh, drip cake, because everybody was asking for drip cakes. So it's like, then it was drip cakes. Now, as far as your question about fondant, I am buttercream based. So what that means, I will dibble and dabble in fondant, but I will be totally honest, I pick and choose, but you can do that when you own your own business.
Right.
So what was the how many cakes did it take for you to know that you
were ready to be like, I'm gonna put this on my website, I'm gonna offer it?
Ooh, okay. So to be totally honest, the very first cake that we made, I posted it on like my social media. I think Snapchat. We were still using Snapchat, and so I put it on Snapchat. I put it on Facebook, and I immediately got 2 DMs like, "Hey, it's gonna be my birthday's next week. Can I get this cake in pink?" And I got another message like, "Hey, I would love to order this cake from my best friend." So I'm like freaking out. I tell my mentor like, people are trying to order this cake. Like I just like, whoa.
You wasn't confident yet.
No, my anxiety was through the roof. So she's like, you got this. She's like, you know, we already went through the process. What we did was we actually had another session where I made the same exact cake before I before I made the cakes for them. And like one thing with her, she's like, we don't work on personal projects. Like that was one thing she would not let me do. Like she's like, we don't work on personal projects in our sessions. So if I would make a cake in our session, it's just, you know, I may post it back again. This was in 2020. So I may post the cake after our session's over, like, oh, I have this cake for $50 because it's like the cake is made. I'm just trying to get rid of it. But she was really big on like, you know, like we're not going to work on personal cakes. So I actually practiced before I would work on people's actual cakes. But yeah, literally that day, like I said, I posted and I had 2 orders. I had 2 orders within like 2 weeks, like literally of posting my very first cake. So it kind of took off from there.
Yeah. Then you were like, oh, I like making cakes now.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm not gonna lie, it only took 1 cake for me. It took that very first cake, that green rosette cake that I made on July 2nd. That's all it took.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody have any restrictions as far as nut free, or they're vegan or gluten free, do you have all those options too?
Not all of those options. So when we go into dietary restrictions, like that's super, super important, right? So we're talking about lawsuits. We're talking about people coming after you. So if I don't feel confident in it, I'm not touching it. Because I would much rather just tell you like, hey, this is not my level of expertise. I may follow a baker. Like I have a few baker friends in the area, and some of them I haven't even met them in person. Like I literally just found them on Instagram, and we just became like. I have this one. She doesn't bake anymore, but she literally reached out to me and messaged me on Instagram, and me and her became like such good friends. And I would send so many people to her. But she like her level of expertise may be in something that I may not have been extremely confident in. So gluten-free, I do offer gluten-free. On every order form, I always ask, do you have any allergies? Which, I actually am allergic to almonds. So I think a lot of people don't think about nut allergies, but because I have a nut allergy, I'm super, super conscious. Like I even have a cake that has almond extract in it. And like, I even have to like put gloves on when I deal with that, because like my skin will like break out immediately. But as far as vegan, I have not touched the vegan cakes yet. I think that it's a huge it's a huge spot in the market for it. I think it's very much like a niche, but the vegan, I'm kind of scared.
That's okay. That's okay. But I think, it sounds like you have that same fear of when you walked out on Faith to make that cake, when she asked you to make a cake.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you can try it.
Did you get one of the honey buns
I didn't, and I was so mad because, I mean, by the time I got to the table and I was trying to be, courteous to everybody that was there, I was like, oh, I got this cake in a jar here. I don't want to take too many treats. So at her 5-year party, she had a table full of all different treats she had. And I have to say, her cake sickle. So I don't know if you recall, I reached out to you for my birthday one year and I was like, can you do cake pops in purple? She responded, hey, Renee, I don't do cake pops. I do cake sickles. I said, oh, well, what's a cake sickle? And so she sent me a picture and I was like, oh, well, excuse me. Yeah, I'll take those though in purple, whatever. But I was like, and then I said, oh my gosh, she's grown. She's grown.
So what all do you do? What all do you offer?
So of course the cakes, the number one seller, the custom cakes, cupcakes are huge. I'll do like cake slices, like every now and then I'll do like a cake slice sale. I actually probably gonna have one coming up soon.
But I do so good.
What'd you say?
They're so good.
Oh, thank you. But I do cake slices and then I do like treats for parties. So more so, like everything I do is more so for aesthetics, right? So I kind of consider what I do like it's a luxury business, because everybody you don't have to buy a custom birthday cake for your birthday. Like you can go get somebody a cake from Nothing But Cake, or stop at Publix and get a cupcake. But
it is for aesthetic, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Yeah, that Spider-Man cake I saw was crazy.
Listen, let me tell you why.
You do that.
And I'm gonna be real honest. And you gonna kill me. Lane nor I even like cake, but we order cakes because we get it for the aesthetic, to tag you.
I'm not gonna kill you.
I order cakes from her, and I'm not gonna lie, sis, cakes ain't cheap. Lane bought a 3-tiered wedding cake that she did for Lang. It was like, it was beautiful. It was peacock and all this 3-tiered. It was a wedding cake for her birthday.
Single key, y'all paying for it.
And cupcakes around it. It was a beautiful cake. At first, when this how you know we don't eat cake and it's for the aesthetic. Beautiful cake, right? 3-tiered. She had a dinner at Red Crab. Is that what it's called? The crab place in a bag. And she got this 3-tiered cake at the end of the table. And we all eating cracking crabs in a bag. And she's like, move over because I want to take my picture of my cake, and gave everybody the cake, but didn't eat the cake because neither one of us really eat cake.
Yeah, that's love. That's love.
It's for the aesthetic.
Yeah, you want to know, like, honestly, I'll admit it to y'all too. Every time I make cakes, I make a cake every year for my birthday. Like when I have stuff at the house, like I literally had a birthday party for my dog for his first birthday. I do not like. I'm always like, take this cake with you. Because it's not that I don't like cake. Now, I love cake. That's how I started baking. Like, that's my problem. I love bread, anything sweet. I like cakes, cupcakes. But, like, I like cupcakes fresh out the oven, no icing.
Yeah, same.
Fresh out the oven, no icing. But I'm literally every event, I'm like, take this cake with y'all. I'm literally cutting huge chunks of cakes. And my friends are all like, yep, let me get a plate. And I may have a slice. Like, even when I go to my friend's birthday dinner, it's like, I'm literally there like, you want a slice of cake? And I'm just like, no, but, it probably would be crazy for me to sit at this table and not eat my own cake. So I'll get a slice.
Yeah.
I'm like, I deal with it almost every single day. Like, I'm touching a cake.
If you're getting a custom cake, it's for the aesthetic.
It's definitely
people are not paying the amount of money for a custom cake to be sitting there just eating cake. I'm telling you, it's for people to walk past and be like, "Ooh, that's nice. Let me get a picture. Let me move over. Let me do all it." If you're paying the amount of money for a custom cake, it's for everybody else. It's like paying for a wedding.
Yeah.
With you taking orders and having your business, you running a business, do you still do, or have you ever done pop-ups? You just make things and you do pop-ups any places?
I did a pop-up for my I think that was my 3-year when I celebrated. I try to do something every year around my anniversary, like sometime in July. So the $1 cupcake sale, I usually do a $1 cupcake sale. Like that goes crazy. Like the first year it went crazy. The second year it went crazier. So I think year 3, I did a pop-up because I'm like, every time, like I'm home-based, all right? So when people are picking up, it's like, hey, nice to meet you. Here's your cake. I hope you enjoy it. See you next time. Bye. So, and I was just like, I actually want to do a pop-up. Like I want people to be able to come and talk to me. I had some people who were DMing me about wedding cakes. So I'm like, maybe like I was telling them like, hey, I'm having this pop-up. Like this would be a great time for you to come. We could come meet face to face. Cause sometimes when people work with you, like I have people who are literally like, hey, I want to order a cake, but can you call me? And some people just like, they want to talk on the phone. They want to get a feel. And I can understand it's like I'm making something for you that you will be eating. And then especially if it's something as big as like a wedding, some people literally just want to fill you out. So I did a pop-up for year 3. And I did, one of my friends invited me to, she owns Get Mixed with Jamie. She has a mobile bartending business in the area. And there's I don't know if y'all heard of Cam Raleigh. It's like this art gallery downtown Raleigh.
You probably heard of it. I ain't heard of it.
It's called, Renee, you would really like it, but it's called Cam Raleigh. So it's an art gallery. They had a Juneteenth showcase back in, I know it was Juneteenth, but I want to say it was the first weekend in June. But that was their Juneteenth gallery. But I want to say it was the first Friday in June. I went out there. That was pretty cool because it was like I met all types of people that, didn't know anything about my business. I didn't know anything about them. So it was nice to be able to just like kind of not be in the kitchen and just mingle with people. And then also like just people trying your stuff and coming back to the table like, oh my God, that cupcake was so good. So I don't do the pop-ups often just because like my bread and butter of my business is the custom cakes. So,
Right.
you know, like most of the time I'm at home working, getting the cakes done. So it doesn't leave much room for pop-ups, but I'm always open to do them every now and again, but it's very few and far between.
Now, are you still working full-time or are you doing this full-time?
So what a lot of people don't know, I do have a full-time job.
Okay.
How do you do all that?
Yeah, everybody always asks me that. I'm just very
Just
blessed.
take us through a day of completing all your orders and working a full-time job.
She will tell you no, though. She'll tell you she's busy.
Every week. Every week I tell somebody no.
Literally you have to.
Yeah, every week I tell at least 3 people no, which is kind of insane to think about. But yeah, man, I do a lot. So I do have a full-time job, but thankfully it's 100% remote. So I swear I'm always like this job, y'all, my full-time. I won't even get into that story because it's a little story behind that too. But after IBM, I ended up getting, like I said, I got a job 6 months later. I ended up working at Wells Fargo. And when I got to Wells Fargo, I took a $20,000 pay cut from IBM to Wells Fargo. I was at Wells Fargo for about, I think, 2 years, 3, maybe 3. I got laid off there too. So this time was 1,000% different from 2017 getting laid off at IBM. So when I got laid off at Wells Fargo, I think this was 2022. You know, my friends are like, "So what are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "Bake." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, honestly, I've been saying that, like, I've been kind of like, I'm gonna step out. Like I always tell people, like, people who always ask me, like, when are you gonna open up a bakery? I always tell them whenever God tells me to. Because I'm just a firm believer of, like, when it's time, it's time. Like, the doors will open, but I'm not going to rush my process, and I'm not going to open up a bakery too soon and it be the demise of my business, because I see longevity in what I've started. You know, and it's like, this is just the beginning. But so I was at Wells Fargo, got laid off. And I was like, I'm just gonna bake. This is just what I'm gonna do full time. So at that point, I definitely wasn't telling anybody no.
Yeah,
I was taking all the cakes. So I had a friend that was like, "Hey, I found this job. Like, I think you should apply for it. It's 100% remote." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So she reached out like a week later. She's like, "Did you apply for that job?" I'm like, "I forgot. I'm gonna do it tonight." She reached out another week. She's like, "Did you apply for that job?" I'm like, "Why do you keep asking me about this job? Like, I told you that I'm making cakes. Like, leave me alone." So she's like, "I applied for the job," and she was like, "I got I got the first round of interviews." She's like, "I made it to the final interview and didn't pass like this little test." She was like, "You should really apply for it." So I'm like, "You know what? I'm actually tired of you calling me, asking me that I apply for this job. So I'm going to apply for the job." And I have the job. Like, fast forward, I got the job.
right.
And the job initially, it was like I had to go into the office for like 2 weeks, but it was 100% remote. And like now we're to the point where, like, we don't even have an office in the area anymore. And the job is it's super duper flexible. Like I said, it was literally just, it's almost like it was ordained for me. So it's a super flexible job. But yes, I do, my day in, day out is a lot. Yeah, I like to work out. I like to get a workout in. I work most of the time, like anytime between like 7 and 4, just depending on that. I get my 8 hours in. And after that, I go to the kitchen. And then, like I said, the job is super flexible. So even sometimes I may be on my lunch break and I may go to the kitchen and go bake and get my cakes in the oven. Let those sit in there for an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's day in, day out. It's a lot. I use a lot of online ordering. Like the Instacart and Walmart delivery is amazing, top tier.
How many cakes orders you have in a day?
I would have to say about a week.
Okay.
I would say weekly. Weekly, I have about, honestly, like my orders, I don't have to take as many orders, right? Because like I've gotten better. I'm perfecting my skills, so I can charge for that. Like the price, reflects my skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I do about 7 to 10 cakes a week. But like 2020, I was doing like I might have 15 cakes in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
2020, like I remember I had a roommate back then. I think it was like 20.
I remember that. I talked about it.
So what's the difference between 2020 and now, between 15 and 7? Is the time or the quality, or what's?
I think so. From coming from a business perspective, is outside is back open.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people have realized how much that changed stuff. So in 2020, remember we got put on lockdown, and they're like, you can't have gatherings more than 10 people, right? So so at first it was like panic. And then it was like, I want to say April of 2020 was so busy for me, because I think that's when everybody came to the realization of like, we're stuck in the house and my birthday is coming up and I still want to celebrate. So because I can't go out of the country, I can't do what I normally do. I can't go fly to Vegas or go to New York or whatever, go to Florida. Florida was still open.
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Yeah, people were like, I'm gonna have a dinner at home, or I'm gonna do whatever in the house. So they're like, well, I want a cake, right? Because you will usually be spending this extra money on, you might be in Cancun. Who cares about a cake? You're in Cancun or you're out the country somewhere. So I think people were like, they like me and Renee were just saying, it's the aesthetics of it all. So when you have like, it's like, well, I have a dinner at home, so what can make this dinner more special? Let's get a chef. Let's get someone to decorate. Oh, let's order a custom cake. And of course, my pricing was was lower. Like you definitely could get a cake from me for about $75 back then.
Yeah. Well, what they say, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Okay.
Now, what's your favorite cake to make?
As far as like flavor or the decorative cakes?
Decorative
cakes. Ooh, that's a good question. There's so many. My favorite cakes, honestly, now, like wedding cakes. And I know I'm not being very, I guess.
Is it because it's so simple versus, like the custom? I guess wedding cakes can still be custom, but a lot of times I guess the new aesthetic is like, is very minimalistic and, for a wedding versus like.
Okay. So I know that was kind of like a broad statement, because wedding cakes are different, right? You can have a 2-tier, you can have a 5-tier. But I'm saying that because like I am going to forever be a part of your big day, right? Okay. So like you might, forever, it's like when you look in your pictures, your your photo albums, it's like Kreations made this cake. And then it's just like, it's a lot of pressure, right? Because this is somebody's like big day. So you're like, I have to get this right. I don't want the flavors wrong. I have to make sure I structure this right. Because when we talk about tiering cakes, you can structure a cake wrong and it's gonna fall. Yeah. So it's a lot of pressure. But at the getting those text messages like that following Monday, or I've even had people message me the next day like, oh my God, like the brides, they're like, I absolutely love my cake. It was everything that I could have imagined. I think that is just like, for me, it makes like everything so worth it. It's like, that was worth all the stress. So it's not even like, I guess it's really not even the core in it. It's just like knowing that I'm like such a big part in someone's like special day that they'll remember forever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, what's your favorite decorative cake?
Probably it's the florals. So the tall cakes, so they're tall, so the 3-layer cakes, and then the ones that have like the flowers like scaling down, like some of them I put champagne bottles in, but I don't want to say champagne is like my absolute favorite, but I love those too. But definitely like any, like the tall cakes with flowers, so whether it's flowers scaling down or like a little bit of flowers on the top, a little bit of flowers on the bottom. Like I love flowers. So I think they make the cakes look so pretty.
Now you've been baking for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When you went to your mentor, she saw greatness in you. Do you think there's anything better that you can do with your cakes?
Better?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The sky's the limit.
Yeah. Now, you go to any like I don't even know, maybe they have like cake meetups or, you know, where they offer different training cake designs and all of those things. Do you ever travel to any of those? Because you're in the industry, so I'm sure you probably follow a lot of the cake makers, taste makers, treat makers. I'm sure they offer, you know, something similar to, you know, the women empowerment things that they host around.
And name something that you think you can do better or incorporate.
I like that too.
That's good. So yes, there are cake meetups. So I have contemplated actually going to 2 of them. Now, to be totally honest and to be totally frank here, I think that it's very similar to the women's empower, like how I feel about the whole women's empowerment movements or the things that they have. Like the brunches, or the luncheons that these women have, these like all these IG followers, and they're like women's empowerment.
Yeah. And it's
it's like what are we really doing here? So I kind of feel the same way about the bakers who have these classes. Honestly, I'm on a level to where I could have those classes myself.
You really can.
Yeah, I can have those classes myself. But there are women, and there are women out here, and there's some men. One of them is Cake King. He is amazing. He's a great, like, he has over 100,000 followers. I think he's close to 200 now. And literally, he's the type of person, like, you can comment on his story, he will write you back. Like, he's very humble. But he's really, really big in what a lot of people what you probably would have no clue about. The baking community is it's segregated, very much segregated. And there's like a Black baking community, and there's the other baking community. And the others, you know, they can put out the most simple cakes, and you go on their pages, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers. And then we, the Black baking community, can put out like I've seen some extravagant work, like floral work, fondant work, buttercream work, wedding cakes that may be much better than Susie, who has 200,000 followers, but she, you know, this girl may have 30,000, and it could have taken her 7 years to get there, and Susie might have had Instagram for 2 years. So it's very segregated. So one of the reasons I have contemplated, going to one of these like meetups that they have now at I guess it's kind of like a informative type of session where like they're like we're gonna make a 3-tier cake, and they have on the flyer like this is what the cake is gonna look like, and it may be a cake that I'm like, you might be able to teach me some tricks, a couple tricks.
That's
like,
just not for my customer base.
Yeah, it's like you may be able to teach me some tricks that I don't know, because at the end of the day, we should always be willing to like keep learning, especially when you have a skill set like what I have, like in the creative lane. So you can't think that you just know everything. Like, so it's like, yeah, y'all may be able to teach me a couple things, but for the most part, I know how to make this. Like, I know how to make this cake, and probably could teach the class on how to make the cake. But I'm more so I've been open to going to these classes more so because, like I said, because of the segregation in the baking community, and wanting to meet other bakers like me and connect and network. And I think that's just like so important, and it's so big, no matter what industry you're in. So yes, I have definitely thought about that. And then what Leon asked, as far as me, what would I possibly do better? I would actually make the classes like actually informative, you know. So like it's like, or I think I would also too, you know, I think if I did a class, I would put the level of, like, if you're a beginning baker, like this is the type of cake that we're making. Or like if I'm looking for bakers who are very advanced, then I'm going to pick a cake. Like I'm gonna make it worth your time, you know. Maybe pick something that you're like, wow, like I don't know how to make that, or something maybe that has to do with the wedding cake world. But I think the other thing too, the third thing, and what's really important, is just kind of giving people like this knowledge that you've learned with your business, like on the business side, whether that may be like financially, maybe something went wrong and someone else could learn from it. So whether it's financial or even like getting like order forms, like again, like I said earlier, it's kind of like hard to have a website because it's like, well, what do I put on the website? And it's also hard to make an order form for a cake because everything literally could be custom. So even giving someone just like a little template, like, hey, this is where you could start with order forms. I think that those things, like when people have these classes, they don't think about that type of knowledge that you could also drop on bakers coming up under you.
For sure.
Now, have you anybody inquired about mentorship from you, or do you see yourself not courses, but giving classes or anything like that for your baking?
Yeah, I do. I have had a few people reach out. I know like a couple years ago, maybe even going back to 2020, I had people reach out, and back then it was like, nah, I'm not ready to mentor anybody. And like I said, when I'm making 15 cakes a week, how could I possibly have time to mentor? You know, how could I possibly have time to mentor you? Like any day that I would be out of the kitchen, it's like I just want to sit down, lay down. Like I think back then, like at least once a week, I was pulling an all-nighter, literally. So back then it was more so like I would refer people to my mentor. Actually, she was still mentoring. More recently, I have had people who have reached out. And I think it's just more so like people who've reached out like more recently, it's more so been like a time thing or the distance, like they were kind of far. But mentorship, that's definitely something that I want to get into. I think I more so want to go like the classes route of, I can give someone that one-on-one time, but like it's also a huge commitment because one thing I learned from my my mentor is if I do mentor somebody one-to-one, like I wouldn't want them to come to my house. I would travel to you.
Right.
So the reason it's nothing like against them. Like granted, but letting someone in your home is to me it's like very personal and very sacred. Right. This is like your home is your peace. But it's more so, it's not even about that. It's because you're going to be working in your house, in your kitchen. So what is the point of you coming to my house, working with my tools, my materials? You're moving around in my kitchen. And then when you get home and you're trying to make this cake that we worked on in a one-on-one session, you're like, where's this? Where's that? Well, Key had this. Okay, but I forgot to order that. So it's like working your kitchen. This is where you're going to be working. So this is where you'll be comfortable. But that's definitely something that I want to do in the future. And as far as like classes, I actually want to offer kind of like even what we were talking about, like even having like a class where like, on a Saturday, I may be able to have 15 people in the class. It may be a 4-hour session. And I've actually started something similar, but that's more on like the fun side, the cupcake classes. But yeah, that's more on the fun side. Like it's something good for like date night because it can be 2 people on a cake. But for like kids, I've done it like kids' birthday parties where it's just like a private party. I come to you, I set up, and literally like you're just decorating your own cake, and I have everything there for you. Like as far as like frosting, the cakes are already made. So I get the hard part out of the way. So you just do the fun. It's kind of like how you think of like wine and design, but
I like that.
That's what I was thinking while you was describing it.
Yeah. Have you thought about doing an ebook for beginners? Like you want to get into baking, like, and it's like a digital book, maybe a checklist of things like that you think is essential to start, right?
So to be totally honest, I haven't thought about it. It's actually a good idea. But to be honest, like when we talk about businesses now, like Instagram, it's like, and TikTok are huge in like pushing businesses forward, right? Like literally if they shut down Instagram tomorrow, I would cry. Like I do have a customer base, don't get me wrong, but I would say like literally from over time, I would say I know at least 75% of my customers came from Instagram. People who I don't know, and or it could be a word of mouth thing, but it's like they're still going to your Instagram first because they want to check out your work. They want to see what you're doing before they even reach out to you. So like a big thing on Instagram right now is like digital products. Like entrepreneurs are really pushing digital products, and I have been like, I've been over here like literally, I'm talking about probably for the past couple of months. I'm like, I want to get into the digital products, but I'm like, what am I going to like? I'm like, what was beneficial for me starting out? Like, what exactly am I going to do or create for this digital product? But that is a great idea, Renee.
Essentials, baking essentials for beginners. They may not be able to afford a KitchenAid mixer, right? So what's the next best thing? Or, try this, start off with cakes in a jar, start off with strawberries, or, how to get there.
Go ahead and write that down so you won't forget.
Right. Noted. Noted.
You said something about picking up or people coming to your house for your cakes. Now, do you deliver, or people just always come to your house and pick up cake?
People do not come to my house and pick up cakes.
Okay. I was making sure.
I do offer delivery. But I have a pickup location.
Okay.
I have a pickup location, and I'm actually in the works of partnering with a business. I won't say their name yet, of course, but I'm in the works of partnering with a local business in the area for people to pick up there. And I think like at the end of the day, like it's gonna create like that partnership it'll create foot traffic for that business too, right? Because if I'm telling you I'm doing 10 to 15 cakes a week, I think the partnership would be beneficial for either one of us, but mainly for my customers too. Instead of like I have like set pickup times now. But if I do partner with this business, I'll be able to give my customers like a range, like, hey, you can go pick your cake up anytime between 11 and 4. Instead of being like, okay, your pickup time is at 10 a.m., because things happen on my end and on a customer's end, like even with this weather this week. And I know, especially where I live, the traffic is terrible on this side of Raleigh. But I don't offer pickups from my house. I think mainly like I'm really big on like my safety. I have a lot of people who order from Instagram who I don't know. So, and I know people who like, I know some people who make cakes and have been this one baker, I won't say her name, but she doesn't live in this state anyway. She lives in DC. She is amazing at what she does. She was like a really big inspiration for me with my cake design. But she has like over 100,000 followers. She does pickups at her house. I literally cannot.
No, not unless I know you, right? Like we have to have some sort of form personal relationship, or I know you and I can trust you and I feel comfortable. But outside of that, absolutely not.
Yeah, and people are just, man, people are different nowadays. You really gotta be careful, man.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And you got to respect it, right? When she's like, I don't feel comfortable, meet me somewhere. You got to respect it. You still getting the same quality of cake. You just can't see where I live. I'm sorry.
And I've never had any problems with it. I've been doing that since I've started. And I've never had anyone like complain or anything. Like, I just tell them like, hey, this is my pickup location. This is the address. Meet me here at this time. I'll see you then. But yeah, I haven't had any problems, and I have several repeat customers, like tons of repeat customers. So yeah, you gotta do what works for you.
Who's the most memorable cake you've made for someone?
Man, the most memorable, geez Louise, probably probably the couple of the 3 or 4, maybe 5 complaints that I've had over the years. Most memorable.
What was the complaints?
That's reality, though, right? When you own a business.
What were the complaints? Yeah, let's be transparent here. I had one complaint. She's very memorable. This was in it was either 2020 or 21. But I know this was back when I still had a roommate. And I was doing pickup, around the corner from my house. And this day I was swamped, like totally swamped. So one of my friends was over and she was helping me with the pickups that day. So I'm like literally in the kitchen, like pushing these cakes out, like making sure that they're done. And then for the most part, like what my mentor always taught me, if she watched this, she would kill me right now. But the rule she always told me was to have my cakes done 24 hours before pickup, which, it sounds great. But anywho, so, on a Saturday when I have like 6, 7 cakes, you also have to think like, where are all of these cakes fitting? So right. I might finish 3 or 4 before I lay down that night. And then the other 3 or 4 have to get done the day of pickup, and I just do them in the order of pickup time. So this day I'm like swamped. So I had a friend over who she was taking all the pickups to the location for me. And I'm like able to keep, I'm able to box the cakes, keep decorating. So I had a young lady, she ordered a cake for a baby shower. And I think that my friend was probably like 15 minutes late for the pickup, which it was all like, again, I was swamped. So it was all on me. She got over there about 15 minutes later and she got a 2-tier. And at the time, the cake box that we used when your cake was taller, you put the cake in a box, all right? So it's the cake boxes that just flap open.
Yeah.
Put the cake in the box and you tape the flap so that it just sits open, right? Mm-hmm. So look, I put my hands in here. So your cake box is just, the flap is just sitting open.
Right. Especially if you have something sitting on top.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you tape the box and then boom, it's like, here's your cake. But it wasn't covered. Like there's nothing covering or enclosing the cake. But mind you, in the cake industry, this was how any tall cakes or any 2-tier cakes, this is how you delivered the cake. Mm-hmm. And this was a very common like practice, like it's all over Instagram. So I got a message that day, like a very long message, from her, and she complained about the cake. She was like, the cake was totally exposed, and she wasn't expecting that. And then she also complained about the design. So the biggest thing, like, right, with the customer, like I'm gonna tread lightly when I say the customer is always right. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tread lightly. But at the end of the day, like a customer can feel however they feel. But my biggest thing is I'm not going to argue with you. Like, however you feel is how you feel. And however you feel, you're valid to feel that way. But I'm not going to go back and forth with you. I'm not going to argue with you. Now, what I did have to explain to her was the design that she chose it was a watercolor, right? So we all know what a watercolor picture is. So when you watercolor a cake, it's literally like you smearing it's like you put in different colors on this cake and you literally smear it. Right. And wherever these colors go, they go. So like if white is in your design, there's going to be some parts that have more white in them. There's going to be some parts that have other colors. So she was complaining about like she felt like the coloring wasn't like there was like white spots in the mm-hmm. and I'm like, well, that's the design that you chose. So I kind of like explained that without like kind of rebutting her. Mm-hmm. And then, but the other thing, as far as the box, for me, like I took it like hard because like I don't get complaints often. Like honestly, like seriously, since I've started working, I would have to go back and count, but I think that I may have had 5, maybe 6. I'm being generous there. Complaints like since I've started. So I don't get them often. So when I do get them, I'm like, okay, immediately I go into what can you do better? like, and I get so hard on myself. I get so tough on myself. So number one was like, you know, the timing of like, okay, did you put you just put too much on your plate? You need to really scale back. Like, but then it's like when you have these people in your inbox and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make your birthday cake. And they're like, oh, but you make my cake every year. Like, please. You're just like, on you. Yeah, you get soft on them and you like, all right, I'm gonna squeeze you in, like, but just know, you know, and then when they call you like, well, can I pick up my cake at 10 o'clock? I'm squeezing you in.
Right.
So, you know, so that was one thing. I'm like, am I putting too much on myself? Like, you know, if it's a matter of me running out of space in the refrigerator, well, I just have to scale back on the cakes. Like, and then it's like at the same time, I can't pour from an empty cup, right? So it's like I can't keep pulling all-nighters. I can't pull all-nighters like Thursday night, Friday night, you know, I'm up for 36 hours or 48 hours, whatever. But the third thing, like the boxes, you know, I talked to my mom about it, and my mom was, you know, she came at it with a level head, and she's like, you know, not my mom she always plays devil's advocate, but she's always gonna like keep it real with me. And she was like, okay, so what can we do better in this situation? You already addressed the timing, right? She's like, number one, that's probably where the complaint started because you weren't on time.
Right.
Number two, you know, you were swamped and it just is what it is. And you had your assistant deliver the cake, but with your assistant delivering the cake and not you, and this cake is exposed, she's like, you know, that probably did throw her off, but then it's like, okay, now you're complaining about the design. It's just like, you're just trying to throw some extra stuff in there at this point. So from that point, what she did make me do was elevate my business. And the way I elevated my business was I started ordering these expensive boxes. Like the boxes that I use for like the 2-tier boxes, they're like $6 per box. Like that's just for the box of the cake. And then even the boxes that I use for my 1-tier cakes, they're very sturdy boxes. They have windows on them. But I know from that point forward, I no longer gave anyone a cake that was exposed at all whatsoever. Even if I did use the boxes that I had left, I started Googling, YouTubing.
Or you wrap them with like saran wrap and all of that. So they can...
And that's exactly what I did. I enclosed it, wrapped them with saran wrap. So if anything, her complaint really was like, okay, you needed to hear this from somebody. You know, and she was, you know, different than my normal customer base as well. So I think it was like, you know, maybe where something didn't bother my regular customers. Now I had someone who was ordering from me for the first time. And it's like, okay, I'm glad that she came to me with that, honestly, because it's like, you elevated my business from that one complaint. So it's like, yeah, it was a complaint, but I was able to make things better. I was able to grow from that.
Right.
Now, so what's new for you? What's next for Keys Creation? You have the cakes, you have the cake sickles, you have, you know, your strawberries, you have your cupcakes. What's next? What's going to shock everybody? I mean, I think I know from your party, but let people know.
You know, from my party. Ooh.
You made an announcement, but I didn't get a chance to try it.
Yeah, so I had some I keep calling them honey buns, but cinnamon rolls. I made some cinnamon rolls, and what Leon asked me earlier, they are actually vegan.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I think you had it in you. I think you had it in you.
The cinnamon rolls are vegan. I don't think I actually said it at the party, Renee. I think I forgot.
You didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, that's okay. We were there to celebrate you. It wasn't for you to remember everything. And plus, sometimes when you mention vegan, it automatically turns people away. So the element of surprise that they got from that, and I'm pretty sure was you received a lot of praise just knowing you, then it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, a lot of people were messaging me like, "Oh my God, this cinnamon roll! I put this in the microwave for 10 seconds." But yeah, so I want to introduce more. In the future, I want to introduce more products, like everyday products, all right? Because we don't need a decorative cake every day, and you know, and like Renee said, they're costly. Like my minimum for my cakes, they start at $100. So, you know, you may not want this cake, $100 cake to celebrate, but you may have a sweet tooth and you're like, let me see what Key has today. Let me see what she has available. So I want to start doing more everyday treats. Like I said, like I do the cake slices. I'll have a cake slice sale soon. And I do like cake slices for $5, but they're like these like 3-layer cake slices. They have like filling inside.
Well, she looked closer. And I'm not a cake eater, but I like her cakes. You know what I mean? So I would still purchase. I would purchase them even if I didn't.
Yeah, earlier you said. So do you do eat some of the cake, right?
I tried it. It's good. Okay. I even tried her cake in a jar. It's really good. I'm just cake isn't my treat of choice. I'm a cookie girl, right? If she sell cookies, I know where she live. I drive to her house and pick them up. And she was making cookies.
You just said you're about to start making some new treats.
Right. I do make the cookies. I'm telling you, it's hard. It is hard for me to squeeze these things in because people keep me so busy with the cakes, and I'm not complaining at all.
Right. And it's
hard for me. I can't believe you haven't. I'm gonna bring you some cookies. I'm
trying to tell you, I'm a cookie girl. But I'm a supporter of all things. Anybody I know, if you know me, you know I'm a support. I'm gonna buy something. I'm not gonna ask for no discount. Well, I might ask for a discount, but not really. But I'm a support. I buy everything from everybody, even if I don't eat it. I just know I contributed to you, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way too, especially when you have people who support you. Like,
yeah, people with kids. You know how many cookie dough buckets I had in my freezer? I'm not making no. Listen, I pay for convenience. I'm not making cookies. You know how many? What's the good popcorn people that all? I got about 5 bags of popcorn in my pantry that I probably need to dispose of, but I get the text, hey, can you support little Jimmy? And I go ahead and I do it. You know what I mean? Sororities, everything. I just, Leon, you saw me at the convention.
Yeah, I saw you.
My whole family got over on me. I went there to do the podcast. I left there $200, shorter. The account was $200 less than when I came in.
Oh yeah, you're a big time supporter.
I tried. But where do you see Key's creation? I'm going to say not 5 years. I'm going to say 2 years from now. I know you want to do everyday treats where they can kind of grab and go. Is eventually is the goal to do this full time?
Eventually the goal is to do it full time for sure. Because like I said, like I'm just getting started. Like I honestly feel like I really could build an empire over here. Like once I open up a bakery, and I think the biggest thing I've been looking for, like literally I have been looking for someone who I could train to, like a baker who I could train, who literally could I could train them up so good to where their work literally could almost pass like my work. But I think that's the biggest thing, right? It's just me. It's only me, right? And that's another thing when people say, like, when you gonna open up a bakery? Well, y'all want me to open up the bakery, run and operate, bake everything, run the register in the front? Like, that's a lot of work on me. Like, I need another solid baker who I can trust.
Now, when you say you need a solid baker, are you talking about someone to teach or someone that already knows how to bake?
So preferably someone who, y'all, my Frenchie is down here. If y'all hear him, I'm so sorry.
That is a dog.
Yes, he's probably about to jump in my lap, but yeah,
you've been gone too long.
He was just sleeping. He's like, okay, now I need attention. But so when I say a baker, like, someone who can bake, right? But you can teach somebody how to bake. Like my 13-year-old sister helps me bake when she's here. You can teach someone how to bake.
That's why I was going to ask you, did you have any nieces or sisters, and kind of like why I asked you about the mentor thing, where you can teach somebody and groom them, and there you have it.
That is true. That's very much true. And that's the thing. So one of I do have sisters. I have 5 sisters.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 5 sisters. But I do feel like they're all kind of like, kind of on their own path right now. And then even my baby sister, she's 13. She does hair, and like she is amazing at doing hair, and I'm sorry, she just turned 14, but either way, and it's just like she's known that she's been wanting to like do hair. She's a very girly girl, so she's like into hair. She knows how to do makeup. She's learning how to do lashes, all types of stuff. She's going to cosmetology school, so it's like I have another sister who's in college. And she's going to college for she's in school for graphic design. She helps, like she made my new logo for me. So she helps, right? But it's just kind of like if your passion isn't like baking and being in the kitchen, it's not gonna work out. Like it's not. Yeah. So when I say another baker, I really mean like a cake decorator.
So what we need to do is put out a message blast. Yes. Go to Instagram, go to Facebook. Tell them you're looking for somebody.
I've posted. Yeah. Okay. I said that I was probably gonna go to like a college.
I was gonna ask, have you thought about going to like a college or a culinary school or something?
Yes, that's what I literally said I would do, because I just feel like if I can get one other, like I have been saying this, y'all, for I know the past year, literally. If I can get one solid like person who's really interested, not just someone who bakes, but someone who's interested in decorating cakes. And it would be nice to have someone who does already have the skill set. I'm not gonna lie. At the point I'm at now, if they like at least know the basics of like how to crumb coat a cake or what a crumb coat is, like how to decorate. Even if it's somebody who like decorates for like a grocery store, it's not a type of decorating that I do, but they know more than, you know, grabbing somebody off the street. It's like I can teach you everything else. Like, you know, I had a mentor, but my mentor didn't like, you know, my mentor is amazing, but my mentor didn't teach me everything. Like I was paying my mentor, or, you know, we would have our sessions, and my mentor, she taught me the basics. She taught me like the core, the foundation, everything that I needed to know on how to structure these cakes. So she taught me some very important things. She taught me how to make a rosette cake and a drip cake. We learned, no, actually we didn't even do a square cake together. There was another one that we did. But after that, people are like, hey, can you make this? Can you make that? And I'm like, watercolor. So I just go on like, YouTube University, like Renee said earlier, how to watercolor a cake, how to do this, how to add edible images. Like I started learning on my own. So I can teach someone else the skill set, but it's just like if I had one other person, like a solid person who could decorate with me, like I'm telling you,
she gotta go to Publix or Wegmans in the bakery and be like, hey,
I'm telling you, I'm about to snatch up somebody, auntie.
Renee, you thinking the same thing I was thinking. Going to Kroger's, like, look,
you gotta go. So I used to work for like Kroger / Fred Meyer's, right? And the bakery section, to do cakes and stuff for like Kroger, Publix, you have to have some sort of level of skill. They're not getting you off the street. Like you're having a skill set, but the best ones are midday people. You get somebody midday.
They're knocking out all the work.
That's the person. Morning and midday. Don't get nobody at night. People at night, they just grabbing somebody from off the floor and be like, hey, monitor the back.
Yeah.
You got to get somebody morning, midday. Those are the people because they make the most money too.
You know, Sam's Club too. Because Sam's Club, they push out the 2-tier cakes.
Yeah. I'm telling you, you got to get somebody Wegman, Whole Food, Harris Teeter, or Sprouts.
What about Publix? No.
Publix too. But it's the morning people or the midday people. Don't get nobody at night. You're gonna be surprised.
I'm gonna be on the lookout, y'all, because if I could do that, I feel like once I had that, you know, now we could talk about when are you gonna open up a bakery, because it's not. This is the thing that I always tell people when people talk to me about business and entrepreneurship. And sorry, I'm gonna go into another little story, but I'm gonna try to keep it short. Right. I'm a firm believer in starting, like when you start a business, you need to start a business that you can run and operate, right? So if you can't run and operate that business, if that business can't run and operate, if you can't run it, then do not invest in it. So for example, if I have a bakery, if I open up my bakery today, yes, we know I can run and operate my bakery, right? But let's say that Kiera has a sick day. Let's say I'm just not feeling good. I sprained my ankle earlier this year. I've been in a boot. Like I was miserable for like 3 months because I couldn't work out. I found I did a race last year and I found joy like in running, and it's actually become like very therapeutic for me. So like I can't even go outside and walk. Like it would hurt to walk. So it's like for 3 months I had this boot on for like I think it was like 9 weeks, and then for 3 months I couldn't work out. So it's like, what if that would have happened when I had a bakery? The bakery cannot run and operate if I cannot work. So it's like what my bakery would have just sat for 3 months and I'm just paying these bills and no money's coming in. But I have a friend who she's a nurse and she went and bought a 18-wheeler. And she's like, so I'm like, why did you buy 18-wheeler? She's like, oh, I'm just trying to make some extra money. And I'm like, do you know how to drive an 18-wheeler? No, but I heard it would be like it's good money. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, the truck was operating. She found a driver. She had a driver. He went and got a route. He was coming back to North Carolina. And she called him and she's like, hey, there's this load. I think he was in Virginia. She's like, there's this load in West Virginia. Just pick it up and come back home. He's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. So she's like, why? Just go get the load. He's like, I'm ready to come home. I've been on the road. Da, 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 da. She's like, well, just go get the load and then come back to North Carolina. He did not want to go get that load. So he took her truck. He parked it somewhere. Not only did he park it somewhere in another state, he cut her gas line. She had to get her truck towed from Virginia back to North Carolina. He let out $1,500 of gas and she had to get the gas line repaired. So I always use that as an example of like, why would you're a nurse, right?
Right.
Now I can see if you started like a lot of people are doing like those IV things at home where they're coming to your house and giving you like those IVs for all types of things if you're sick or just for fluids. I can see if you did something like that. Yeah, if you're like, oh, I want to start this type of business, but it's like, why would you?
There's no way.
Right. So, and just to bring that back to me, like, I just feel like I'll open a bakery when I'm ready for it. But it's like, I have to have at least that one solid person under me where it's like, okay, Key doesn't feel good today, or Key's on vacation, but the bakery can still run and operate without me. Right now, we're not there yet.
Yeah. As long as you know that, right? But the vision is still there. I think that's what all that matters, right?
Yeah.
You know that the vision is going to be there.
Absolutely. It's coming. It's coming.
Now she could come to the shop and sell cakes. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely will sell.
Yeah, but just let me know. I'll pull up.
All right. I'll let you know.
See?
Well, anything else?
Anything else you want to let the people know about Keys Kreations?
Make sure y'all follow me on Instagram at Keys_Kreations, and that's with 2 Ks. You can see it on the screen. And Facebook. I'm also on Facebook at Keys_Kreations.
Yes, take a look at all of her beautiful cakes. They are amazing and they taste good. So don't let me just not liking cake fool you, because they are good.
I mean, the fact that you don't like cake and you're saying that it's good, I appreciate you.
And I still buy them. And I'll still buy it. So that says something.
That's good. Well, it was a good conversating with you. You got a bright future ahead of you.
Yeah.
And you'll get that bakery one day.
Thank you. We're speaking into existence. It's
Yeah. All right. Until the next time, there you have it for another episode of the Impel Forward podcast. And remember to seize the opportunity to grasp your dreams.
Yes.
Peace.